Hi, I am Emma Fletcher. Here's my ID. For this research assignment, I chose to do geneticist. The main reason for me being that I have looked into this as a future career for me. I've always loved to look at pedigrees and see the causative of and effects of breeding, and how breeding one thing can lead to another, and just the different combinations and how they work. There's so many different alternative names. One of them that I didn't really think about was actually an animal breeder, which is very much you look at the genetics and you see what you can do to improve what you have or what other people have. A big, really big example of this is horse breeders. They look all over the country to find what they need to improve their mares or their recent or their embryos or their stallions to see what they can improve and to make better and to make more competitive and to make more workable and just a better horse in general, which I think is really awesome. On a completely different spectrum, wildlife geneticists, instead of being involved in the breeding, you look at the past and you see what happened and you see how that happened and what changed in the genetics and just kind of the causes and effects that nature did itself, which I think is so cool. There's certain details. Uh, you can work independently or with others. It depends on the company. It depends on your job title. It depends on if you're working your own company. Like the industry professional that I interviewed for, he works with a lot of people, so he has to be a team player. And yet again, your coworkers and the amount of people that you work with depends on the company and how big it is. So something that's small and just starting up, it's not going to have as many people as like a well-known genetics company such as Transova Genetics. Um, they're a growing company, they're a known company, and they just continue to grow. There's so many employment opportunities, and it depends on what you want to do in the United States. So there's research in this, and there's so many different options for it. Um, Geneticists, their job is to look at the genetic makeup of animals to understand them better and to improve them sometimes, depending on the job title and what they're doing. So they look at the behavior, health, and reproduction. Behavior is a huge thing, especially if we have really domesticated animals. We don't want an animal that could go and get mad and kill us. We have to look at behavior and what we're breeding as a behavior because uh, it's proven over and over again that behavior is a thing that can be passed down in animals and people too. Health is another big thing. We have to look at what health thing, this what things can be passed down and what's just genetic and what's just a disease. It's an extremely important thing, and what defects could possibly happen from breeding certain genotypes together. And reproduction, yet again, another big thing. We have a really good example of this from what I can think of is a bull and a heifer, right? You want a heifer that has the structure to have a calf and to have a calf easily, especially for a first calf, which we all know it's going to be hard because it's their first calf. So we're not going to put them on the bull that throws huge calves. We're going to put them on the bull that throws smaller calves that are more manageable for young heifers to have. Um, they also conduct research. This depends on job titles. Of course, all of them analyze data and some of them develop breeding programs. Analyzing data, just kind of like I said earlier with the two different jobs, it just depends on what side of genetics you're on. If you're breeding, is what I like to call it, or if you're just on the research. It's two different things, and research is also a bunch of different stuff too. So it can be breeding. The requirements for animal geneticists, you have to have a bachelor's degree in genetics or another related field. Same thing with a master's. You have to have a degree in genetics or any other related field. Some jobs, especially the research jobs, do require you to have a PhD in genetics. Um, Internships, they aren't required, but just like any other job, especially in the ag industry, people want to know that you've had experience in this field, and people want to know that you know what you kind of know what you're doing, so they don't have to train somebody brand new. Um, Another thing that goes with the internship is you have to have prior experience with animals and laboratory equipment, and also just working programs and stuff like that, which you should be able to get in your college, but they want real world. Uh, so that's where internships really come to play. The salary is kind of a big range in my opinion. 56,000 to 113,430. 56,000 is more of a bachelor's and master's degree, whereas the 113,000 is a PhD, more experience. The more experience that you have, the higher your pay is going to be. But with that PhD added, you're going to get a pretty good salary just because you have the PhD. It's This job's like any other 9 to 5 job. You have 40-hour work weeks. You work Monday through Friday. There's little physical activity, and it does depend on what you do. Some geneticists kind of do go out in the field more, but from what I've talked with my um, industry professional, he doesn't really go out in the field that much. He mainly stays at his desk, looks at data, and helps people kind of see what they need to do to improve or get the traits that they want. Management depends on your title, and your job and your experience, just kind of average stuff for any 9 to 5 job. The job security is pretty good. It's a growing industry, so there's always going to be people hiring. Like I said, there's so many companies growing, and there's so many stuff being discovered within genetics and related fields, because a lot of geneticists work with different job titles and different people. So, like the one that I talked with, he works with embryologists a lot, just because they're so they work together to intertwine, because they help in the breeding of cattle and they help cloning, and just kind of stuff like that. Like I said earlier, a master's and a PhD will definitely help you advance in your career, um, as well as experience. Benefits and retirement. The benefits are, yet again, just kind of like any other job. You get health, vision, and dental insurance. You get a paid vacation and sick leave. Average retirement is just like office jobs. So it's men is 65 and women is 62, which I think is pretty decent, pretty good. My industry professional is actually from Iowa. He's John Metzger. He had a bachelor's degree in animal science and dairy science from Iowa State University. Then he got a master's degree in animal science from the University of Minnesota. He did receive a little bit of training on the job, just like anybody else would. He had a background in the dairy and beef industry. His family ran a dairy and beef farm, though he kind of found himself more into the dairy side than the beef. He had internships and other jobs within the industry before he found his job at Transova Genetics. He actually had an internship when he was in college with Transova, but he did not stay there permanently. He went to another cattle genetic company and worked for them for a few years. He said he's worked at Transova for 24 years, and he said that to work at Transova, you need to be reliable, focused on excellence, and bettering the animals that you have, or that we have, and that we're trying to improve. And be a team player. Like I said, this is a growing company. There's a lot of employees. He works hand in hand with these embryologists, so it's extremely important to be a team player for his job. His favorite part is making cows better and to help making cows better to help humans flourish, which is extremely understandable. We all kind of want humans to flourish in our own way. He also really likes to meet his clients and talk to them and just talk with his coworkers. So he's very nice. He's very social. He wasn't inspired by one particular person. He was inspired by his family's farm, which I think is so great. He fell in love with the pedigree side of things and just kind of like how the causes and effects of it. He plans to stay at the same job with the same title until retirement. He is 54, so he's not far off from retirement. His advice was to be sure this is what you want to do. Just like anything else, this is kind of depending on what you major in. This is kind of a one specific degree. So if you get out of college and you've paid all that money and you realize you don't like it, you've wasted so much money. And another thing was to do your best not to go into debt, which is extremely understandable. We hear it a lot as young people, and it makes so much sense because we're seeing our parents and on our loved ones just go into debt and struggle to get out of it. And also, finally, to work hard, which I think is just great advice. We hear it a lot, but I don't think we have it sink in as needed to be. Um, from what I took from this is geneticists work to make animals better or to see how animals shift naturally. They mainly work an office job at a computer, and internships help you get jobs. Uh, my personal review, although I think it's extremely interesting, I don't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. I could see myself doing something similar like embryology, but I don't see myself sitting in front of a desk 40 hours a week. I see myself kind of doing both, a mix. Um, just because I like to work with animals and I like to work with people. And I don't, you work with people, but you don't really work with animals as much as I expected to. And so that's where I kind of fall back on with geneticists. Here's my citations page. Thank you. Have a great day.